Should we be worried about these Bucks?
Not against Orlando, but you should be worried about them in terms of winning the championship, because if the Orlando Magic figures out a way to hold Giannis Antetokounmpo without a field goal for the final 11 minutes of the game, ladies and gentlemen, you've got yourself a problem. And then, by the way, I'm officially putting out an APB for Chris Middleton. Where the hell is he? I know he had about 14 points, but last time I checked, this was the supplementary piece, that secondary star per se. He was an all-star to the Greek Freak. Where the hell has he been? He has not been well. He has not played that well since he's arrived in the bubble. And if y'all recall, one of the things that I highlighted prior to bubble play was we're going to find out. One of the reasons I love this competition, and I love it, and I don't diminish the potential or the legitimacy of a champion coming out of this, is because I said, listen, your exploits on the court of play is one thing, but it doesn't stop there. It doesn't even begin there. The level of focus and preparation and all of those things matter. The season was postponed. It was suspended. It was never canceled. You knew that there was a possibility, if not a flat-out likelihood, that you were going to return to play, especially since they spent about a month negotiating and about a month to 6 weeks in advance. You knew that you would be arriving in the bubble. What the hell were you doing? Were you working on your jump shot? Milwaukee shot 14 of 42 from three-point range, if I remember correctly. They weren't hitting shots. Vucevic had 35 points, hit about 5 threes, okay? You got Markelle Fultz that was putting in some numbers. You had Terrence Ross that was putting in some numbers. I mean, you look at 48 of these boys, they showed up to play. And in the end, if you neutralize the Greek Freak from dominating inside, then ultimately it seems to have a contagious effect that detrimentally affects the Milwaukee Bucks, a la what the Toronto Raptors, coached by Nick Nurse, my coach of the year, did to them last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. It seemed they pulled a page from that. So if you're Milwaukee, you better find a way to figure it out. And if you remember, Max, I did not say I was sleeping on Milwaukee. I said I was snoring. Why? Because I said at some point, somebody going to have to step up, because somebody is going to prevent the Greek Freak from coming downhill at them and dominating by getting to the rim. They're going to force him and others to take perimeter shots. Let's see what they do. And last night, or yesterday rather, we saw an inkling of what can happen to Milwaukee when all cylinders are not clicking.
Well, first of all, the Bucks' problem predates the bubble. They lost 4 of their last 5 games before the bubble, Stephen A. They lost to Phoenix. They lost to the Lakers. They lost to Denver. They lost to the Heat. I guess that's 4 games, right? So out of their last 5, and they beat somebody, and it was kind of close. The point is that their struggles predate the bubble. And here's the issue for Milwaukee. You're right. They're walling up against Giannis, and it's having the same effect as it did last year, and Orlando doesn't have the kind of talent that some other teams do. But the answer is yes, you have to be worried about the Bucks right now. And the issue is this. Middleton is an all-star. He's a good all-star. In a good season, he's had his best. He's an all-star. He's not the kind of guy where you're staying up at night the night before if you're the opposing defense thinking he's going to go get his own shot and kill us, right? Who is that guy going to be? And if Middleton is your second best player, you need a third best player who can really go get his own shot. That should be Bledsoe, who's not a very good shooter and also has not played his best in the playoffs for the Bucks. Let's be honest. Who else is there? Even a guy like Brook Lopez, who for a rim defender shot the lights out last year, took over 6 threes a game and hit 37% of them, is taking fewer than 5 threes a game this season and hitting 31% of them, right? They're getting less shooting. And so who's going to step up of the non-bigs? I actually think, even though his handles aren't quite good enough, and his shot isn't quite good enough, but his defense is and his heart is DiVincenzo. You know, and it's not that he's played great recently, but when I look at the roster and I think, who can be the third guy? Who can be the guy who's not scared to take and will hit the big shots for the Bucks to loosen things up for Giannis and to give Giannis and Middleton secondarily some support? I think it might be DiVincenzo. If Bledsoe don't want to be that guy really, if he can't impose himself on those moments of the game, I think DiVincenzo has to be the guy. He's an excellent defender, and he was the best player in the championship game in the tournament. He's shown at moments in his career that he's not scared, And he doesn't, his handles and his shot aren't quite good enough, but they're not terrible either. Maybe they're just good enough to get by in big moments. The point is the Bucks are going to have to find someone on this roster who can help Giannis. Because, Stephen A., if no one can, the Bucks will not get out of the East, and they may even be in trouble in the first round the way they've been playing in the bubble and even in the last 5 games before the bubble.
I still don't believe in Orlando. I don't think they'll be in trouble with Orlando, but I think Miami, I think Kendrick Perkins deserves a lot of credit highlighting how Miami could take them, which is something, if you remember, I've been saying since, months ago about Miami, about what a threat they are. And then we watched Toronto, particularly in the bubble, being the first team to arrive to bubble play. And we said the Toronto Raptors. 2 things I want to point out before we end this. Number one, those last 5 games, you remember before the bubble, before the season was suspended, you talked about Milwaukee losing. One of those games, the first loss was against Miami, when Miami held the Greek Freak to like 13 points. I forgot whether it was either 13 or 18, but they really, really neutralized him. He was a virtual non-factor in that game, and Miami beat them. And then obviously he tweaked his, had his leg hurt against the Lakers, and then he didn't play. I think it was against Phoenix and Denver. He didn't play those last 2 games. That's the number 1 point I wanted to make. Number 2, let's point out something. We had a subject years ago as a side note, y'all. We had a subject a few months ago about Masai Ujiri and how he had that issue with a police officer or what have you at the Oracle. And there was a lawsuit pending and all of this other stuff. I don't know if y'all saw that video where it shows that Masai Ujiri actually was shoved first, and whatever the officer had claimed was not accurate. So he had shoved Masai Ujiri. So let's make sure that we point out the fact that, nothing but props, because I love all of those security folks at the Oracle. They've been great to me throughout the years. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.